of obvious, but there were issues on kickoff coverage. So how much Brandon said he was trying to kick to the right on the one that led to a touchdown. And then just in general, how much did all the COVID personnel issues having to bring guys up affect what you want to do on kick coverage?
Number one, it's on me. It's an execution thing, and it doesn't. The guys that we brought up, regardless of if you have a bunch of new players on kickoff, you have to go out and execute. We didn't execute. The number one thing you got to do is you got to get off blocks. You got to shed blocks. You got to tackle. You got to recognize what the return is. And those three things, we didn't do well enough. And we gave up really, 21 points on special teams with the muff. And you take 34 minus 21 and it's a 13-13 tie. So there's no excuses. It falls on my shoulders. It's not on a player. It's not on where we're supposed to kick it, how deep we're supposed to kick it. This, that, the other, whatever player we're playing with needs to be prepared, and they need to go down. They need to execute their assignment. We didn't do it, and you give the Chargers credit also. Truth is important in life, and they blocked us when they played better than us. But zero, to answer your question on COVID effects, shouldn't have any effect. And bottom line is I got to do a better job of getting these guys to see that look, recognize that look, shed, tackle, and make plays. And we can't put our football team in that situation.
Let's go Eric Dalala, then Brandon Cristal.
Hey, Tom. What sort of lessons maybe from last year can you take with the COVID game if Brandon and Sam aren't able to go this week that can maybe help you guys this weekend?
I'll be honest with you, Eric. Our plan right now is that they'll play. I think that's apparent to everybody. But if they can't, the biggest lesson is we got to put the guys that are coming in to play, especially from a field goal situation. We got to make sure that we put them in a situation where they're going to make those kicks. I got to do a good job of knowing, what they can and can't do. And the two players that we may bring in, and I'm not going to speak on because it gives our opponents advantages. They'll be able to do what we need them to do. And we'll put them in situations where they can do what they need to do and do a good job with that.
Hey, Coach, if either of those players aren't on the practice field today or tomorrow, what does your day look like when there's team periods going on? Are you just catching snaps from Bobenmeyer the whole day?
No, I won't be catching snaps from him, but we'll be going, live punt rush, just like we always do as if Sam's there. So really the only thing that's different is if you came out to practice, you would actually probably think that the specialists are there, with the tempo that we're playing. We're going to snap the ball to rip. Beep will be the kicker. We'll actually staircase like we do with Brandon. And you got to keep it normal for those guys, that are up front, that are executing the protection, and for our field goal block team. And then you go from a punt perspective, we're going to rush punts. We're going to cover punts. It'll all be the same. It'll just be that, the ball's not going to be up in the air from a foot. It'll be off of the jugs machine. But you need to make it the tempo just as fast. This is a fast football team we're playing. The NFL's fast. You can't go through walkthroughs and go into games and win them.
Thanks.
Zach Stevens, last question.
Coach, thanks for talking with us today. How difficult is it for you, for the other guys on special teams, for the unit itself to have potentially a new punter and a new kicker, just a couple days, maybe even a day before the game?
I think that's excuse stuff. The gunner's job is to cover the kick. Our job is to protect where the ball goes, this, that, the other. We got to cover to the returner. That's the guy we got to get down on the ground. So zero to answer that part. That punter that comes in here or that kicker, if we need to use them, they got to execute their assignment. And I got to make sure I put us in situations where, for example, when we're kicking off, this is where this guy's going to be able to kick the ball. That's the biggest thing we got to do with the jugs machine. But I'm not into excuses, Zach. It's one of those things where these guys are pro players and they'll come out and do a great job. 40, Booney, Nate Hairston, Lockie, the gunners, they'll go out and they'll cover where this ball is going to be, and then we'll protect our butts off inside.
Thank you so much, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Megan.
Pat, when you look back at this year, and I guess the last 2 years, but let's focus on this year, what's the most disappointing thing with where the offense never really got on track the way you'd hoped?
Well, obviously, you always want to go out and put a winning performance on the field. There's a lot of things that we've done well. lot of things we've improved on this year from last year. But some of those situations where we had opportunities to score like we did the other night, we run the ball in and we're not lined up properly. And then, we had another one we try to throw the pass behind. It's those opportunities to score. We moved the ball and done a lot of good things. But, I think that's where, you look back on it, that would help us win games.
Eric DeLalla, then George Stoya.
Hey, Coach, Vic said the other day that Drew's talent was evident the other day. He still sees a guy that can be an NFL quarterback. What have you seen from Drew that suggests to you that he can continue to make strides?
I think I would agree with Coach on that point about his ability to have the talent to play in this league. You can see in the last couple of games, he's made improvements. He's made some really good throws. He's taken care of the ball better than he did a year ago. He's helped us execute better than he did a year ago. And you're seeing a young player that's improved. A young player with talent and then a young player given the opportunity to play and improve sort of shows you that he might have the arrow up on him, which we think he does.
George?
Hey, Pat, we've a lot.
Your question's breaking up, so I don't know what.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Pat, we've asked Vic a lot the last couple of weeks about his job status after the season. I'm just wondering, have you had any discussions about that? And is that something you think about or worry about?
No, I don't think about it. I really don't worry about it. I think we as coaches all, we are where our feet are, and we're getting ready to play this game and do everything in our power to put a winning performance on the field.
Troy, then Ryan.
Coach, what do you see has happened with the run game these last 2 weeks? I know it coincides with the quarterback change, and Lloyd was out one of those games, but you guys were a top 10 run team, and now it just has not looked the same. Is it O-line, backs? What do you see? Is it predictability on snap count? It just looks different in the run game.
Yeah, I think I would call it a one-game deal. We didn't run the ball well against the Raiders. We had we rushed the ball decent against the Chargers. We actually, we threw the ball deep, and there was a situation there where we were in a position where we had to throw it more than we would like to run it. So it all goes hand in hand. A lot of times when you're running it and 6 yards here, 7 yards here, 8 yards here, it slows the game down. Sometimes affects how many points you can score, but it all goes hand in hand. I think we rushed the ball better than we did against the Raiders. That was not a good performance. But there were other things that affected how and why we did things in the last game.
Hey, Pat, I have two for you. First one is Noah Fant is going to end up most likely leading the team in catches. He's at 67 right now. Where have you seen his greatest strides, and how encouraging are some of these big plays he's made the last week or so?
I'm encouraged by it. Again, I would imagine that we have one of the youngest offenses in the league. And so when you're talking about playing time and young players improving, with regard to Drew Lock, you could say the same thing for Noah Fant, who's also a very young player. And so, as long as they have good instincts, they have a willingness to work, and they'll keep fighting, when their opportunities come their way, then they're able to make something out of them. And I think he's done that.
And secondly, different topic, Giants coach Joe Judge after the game the other day did not mention you, but alluded to the team 2 years ago who said that players miss meetings, quote, everybody quit, end quote, everybody tapped out. How disappointing was it to hear that from a fellow coach, and what is your response to that?
Well, I don't, obviously don't, that's not an accurate assessment. But beyond that, I have no comment.
Thank you.
Zach Stevens.
Coach, you mentioned how young the offense is. Who's really surprised you and impressed you over this season in terms of the young guys?
Well, there's a bunch of them. Again, because we probably have one of the youngest offenses in the league. you could just go right down the list. I mean, you know, we all know the obvious candidates. Javonte came in and did a nice job. He's got a very bright future. You know, we've talked about Drew. We've talked about Noah Fant. I mean, Quinn Miners has gone in and played and done a really nice job. So, you know, the list goes on and on because there's so many young players. And, you know, from that standpoint, I think as long as they keep improving, their future is bright.
We'll do the final two, Andrew Mason, then Arnie Stapleton. Mace, you're muted.
You mentioned Drew executing well. You mentioned some of the young players doing well. So in the past couple of weeks, kind of like why has there been kind of a disconnect between players doing well and even moving the ball against the Chargers and then only 23 points beyond just kind of the couple of plays there in fourth and goal?
Well, those couple of plays in fourth and goal lead to points, right? And then it's we're talking about different topics. So that's where it goes. But we had big plays in the game. Drew threw the ball down the field. You know, Seth made a nice play, another young player. So, you know, if you want to run the ball a bunch and, you know, throw the ball down the field and do the things that ended up happening last week, you know, when you get close like we did, you got to put points on the board. And so then now you're scoring in at least the 20s. And, you know, we might be talking about different things.
Go ahead and finish us off, Arnie.
Hey, Pat, beyond staying healthy, what do you think Jerry Jeudy can do to next season to sort of hit that production mark that we all expected from a first round pick a year ago? I know he had, you know, the injury early on this year, and if that played a factor in his season. Yeah,
I think the injury certainly, you know, had an effect, but just keep working. You know, I think he's obviously a young player on our team that has a very bright future, like the guys we just mentioned. And, you know, he can be a very outstanding route runner, and just keep continuing to work on all the things that are necessary to play receiver in this league. And I think as long as he's willing to do that, which I know he is, he's gonna, you know, he's got a bright future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach, so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
A lot of optimism. You know, these are guys that have had limited roles, and OJ's been out, you know, most all the season. But he's gained a lot of knowledge during that time, and being around our veteran players, you know, he'll just be better when he hits the field. So if he's called on, you know, we expect really good things from him. Nate's been a guy that's played the inside spots for us, the dime and the nickel, and has done a heck of a job, you know, in his play to this point.
Nick Kosmider, then Troy Rank.
Hi, Ed. You've worked with a lot of coaches in your career, a lot of assistants, a lot of young assistants, and I'm just curious what your thought has been of Christian Parker in his first year working with you guys on the defensive side of the ball. He's obviously got some young players in his group, some veterans. Just what's been your impression of the job that he's done?
Yeah, we've had a lot of good coaches come through, you know, just in our time together, Vic and I, and he stepped right in, and he really blended in with our scheme, and he's really sharp and picked everything up. I think he relates really well to the players, and he's done a nice job.
Go ahead, Troy.
Ed, Coach, you know Vic probably as well as anybody on staff. How do you think he's handled this the last few weeks, with topic number one being his future here? How have you seen him handle this?
Yeah, you know, the one thing, you know, about Vic is, you know, he can always sustain. He's just a tireless worker. He's going to stay on point. He's going to do whatever he can do to give us an advantage, you know, to win the ball game. So, you know, just a lot of respect for how he stays on task and how he can remain effective.
Brandon, then Zach.
Hey, Ed, I'm not sure if we'll get a chance to talk to you next week or not, because I feel like coordinators don't do an end-of-year wrap-up. So what one or two things have stood out to you, or, you know, made you, I guess, proudest of what this defense has done this year to this point?
Well, I think, the one thing that if you ever were going to look at a stat, because they can be all over the place, but when you keep points down, it gives you a chance. And our guys, hung in there, whatever the situation is, goal line, red zone, and been able to keep the points down, for the most part. But it's really how our veterans have worked together. We've added some pieces, there's some optimism for the young players just out of this draft. There's countless guys with roles and have had a lot of starts. So that's pretty important, with the veteran pieces in the secondary, and you have two corners out there like Pat and Ronald and what Kyle's been able to give us, and Bryce Callahan, and, the safety position. You add, Caden Stearns into that. And he, he'll have a role this week as well. So all those things, point to a bright future.
All right, Zach, last question.
And kind of building off that, how would you evaluate the defense performance this year, since we're almost at the end of the season?
Yeah, I just evaluate it with wins and losses. That's really it. Our job is to whatever the task is in that particular game. Did you come through where you held them to one less point? So that's kind of where I go with that. Stats can take you a lot of different places. What I really do like is how our guys have come out and prepared every single week and stayed on point, and our veterans that have taken control of that and made sure our preparation was good. And when your preparation is good, you're going to see your young players develop, and we're proud of that. Young guys are coming into roles, and we played so many different guys. If there's one thing that makes you feel good, if we played a lot of different linebackers, a lot of defensive line combinations, and then in the secondary, we've been hit with injuries from time to time, and guys have been able to maintain, stay up to speed, and keep a solid product out there, most all the time.
Thank you so much, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.